Hi everyone, welcome back to our YouTube channel Zero Analyst. Today is the day 17 of our 30 days Python series. Today we're going to solve 20 pandas related problems which we actually included in yesterday's video. So we're going to solve all these 20 problems and we may learn some new concept today as well. So whatever we have learned yesterday, we will be reusing all those concepts to solve these 20 problems. So let's see the problems. So we have 10 problems on this dataset which is called employees dataset, and then we have another 10 problems on this another data set which is called Walmart. So we will see both the data set and we will solve both the problems. So let's first see the data set and let's import the data set, then we are going to solve these 20 problems. So the first thing is that we will be using this imp data set, which is going to be this one, which is called day 16 imp CSV. Okay, so this is the data set which is a clean and formatted data set. You can see this is the data set we will be using. Now let's first go ahead and kind of import the dependencies, which is import the libraries so that we can use the libraries, right? So let's go ahead and kind of add a new cell here, and I'm going to just add a cell to import the libraries. Okay, so it's import dependencies. As we have already installed the libraries, so we don't have to reinstall it again because we have already installed the libraries yesterday. We will just need to import, it's called import pandas as pd. We will also need to import xlrd. We would need to also import open pyxl. Okay, so these are the libraries we need. Now let's see the question that we'll be solving today. The first question says that filter the data frame to show only employees who work in the IT department. The second question says filter the dataset to show only female employees who are older than 50 age. Then so here we will be using two conditional filtering. One is the female and then this age is more than 50. Third we have, which is called sort the data frame by the salary. So we will need to sort the data set by the column which is called salary in descending orders. We have one more sorting which is called sort the data frame by the department, ascending, and age descending. So we have two sorting here. Then we have indexing, so set id as an index, which we already have done yesterday, and then we need to select the first 5 rows. We have again the second indexing, which is indexed by full name and job title. So we need to select this employee, which is called E02011. Okay, so let's solve one by one problems. Okay, so let's first copy the first problem. I'm just going to copy the first problem and let me just paste it maybe here. This is the problem one, which is called question number one, and let's go ahead and first import the dataset. So the dataset name is called day16 imp CSV, which I have already uploaded in the GitHub repository. So let's go ahead and say here is that pd.read, because we are trying to read a CSV. This is a CSV file, you can see, which is this one, day16 imp CSV, and we would say day16 underscore imp CSV. So this is the dataset, and we would just go ahead and execute it. You see the dataset has imported. So let's save this in a data frame. So I'm just going to name it, call maybe df imp. Okay, so the dataset is imported. Let's see the details again quickly. So dot info, and you can see the details. So you can see we have 5 columns in this dataset and 21 entries, which is 21 records, and all these columns and their data types and their kind of how many nulls they have. Okay, no nulls at the moment, we have already checked. Now let's kind of solve this problem, which is this one, which is called filter the data to show only employee who work in the IT department. Okay, before solving it, I would like to see all the columns that I have in this data frame. So df.imp.columns, if I just type, I would be able to see all the columns. Okay, I don't need this parenthesis, so that's going to be this department column which I need to solve this problem. Okay, now I would just go ahead and say df of this department, not df, which is called df imp of department. Okay, so this department equals what? Equals IT, which I'm looking for. Okay, so if I just execute it, you see it is checking for all the rows in the department column. Is it IT? If it is yes, it's returning true. So these conditions we just need to put in a square bracket, and outside we can use this in df. So based on these conditions we can get the data sets. Okay, so for that you can simply go ahead and say imp df, which is the dataset name, and from this dataset what you are looking for is this condition, which is called boolean values. Okay, so the name is called not imp df, it's called df imp. Okay, let's execute it, and you see all the people who are from IT, we can see it here. So here I'm just filtering by one column, which is called this department column, and department equals IT. So that's the problem number one. Let's see the problem number two. Now here we need female employees who are older than 50 age. So let's see if in case we have gender columns. So this dataset doesn't have a gender column, but we have one more dataset which has a gender column. So we will be using that dataset for now. Okay, so let's see that dataset. That's going to be, which is called this one, which is called day 16 imp data. Okay, now this dataset has some more rows and columns. So this is the dataset we will use to solve this problem. Okay, so for that, again, I would just need to use the same datasets to import the dataset. So I'm going to name it called df dot imp dot kind of 2. Okay, so let's say pd dot read csv, and here I would just need to give the dataset name, which is called day 16, and the dataset name is called data imp data csv. Okay, now I would just run this query. You can see the dataset is created. Let's go ahead and see that this dataset. So info. Now you can see this dataset has some null values. You can see two nulls are there. Now we will learn in the next sessions like how to deal with null values. What are the options you can do with null values? Here you see we have some null values, because if you see the total records we have, which is called 11 columns and 23 entries. So here no nulls, 23 not null values, 21 not null values, remainings are null. Okay, so you can see here only 18 not null, that means remainings are null. Okay, so this dataset we are going to use to solve the question number 2, which is called filter the data frame to show only the female employees who are older than 50. Okay, so this is the problem we have. Now you have seen all the columns here, so that means we were going to use this column, which is called gender, right? So to solve it, we can just go ahead and say this new df2 imp is the data frame. So from this data frame, what I'm looking for, let's write it down. Okay, so first I have two conditions now. One is that this gender should be female, and the second is kind of this age should be more than 50. Okay, or older than 50. Now let's kind of quickly see top 5, the head of this data sets. So you can see this is the head of the data set. So wherever you have which is this age as a null, the data is missing, you see NaN. Okay, you don't have something called null, but you see this way, which is called NaN in pandas data frame. So that means this is null. Okay, so now we will be using this column, which is called gender, and we will be using this column, which is called age, these two columns to filter the data set. Now we already have seen how to filter by two columns. We will be seeing again. Okay, so we'll say df2, and now we need to build our logic in this tuple. Okay, both the conditions I want to be true. So you see I am creating two tuples. So the first tuple I need to put the first condition. What is my first condition? The first condition I'm trying to check is this df of employee, and I would say inside it I am checking maybe the gender column, and I'm going to say gender equals what I'm checking is basically female. Spelling must be correct, so male female. Okay, that's one condition. Now what is the second condition you are checking? Second condition I need to put again the data frame name, which is df employee 2, and the column name that's going to be this time is age, and what I'm looking for is kind of greater than 50. Okay, as I'm using this n operator, which is a logical operator, that is going to ensure if both the condition is true, then only I will be getting that row. Now it's going to apply in the data frame each row for this two column, and if in case both the conditions are satisfied, I'm going to get that row. Okay, so you see I am getting this 6 records so far. So all the people are, you can see, from female, the gender is female, and you can see the age is more than 50. Okay, so this is how you use multi filter at the same time. You can add as many as you want, depending you want this n logic or all logic. Okay, that was question number 2. Let's go ahead and see the question number 3. So we'll be solving now question number 3. Now we're going to use this second data frame only, because we have two data frame, but I'm going to use the second one. Okay, so I can just rename the second one, maybe something called shorter name, but I think this is kind of fine for me. So let's go ahead and convert it as a markdown, and let's add a question number 3 dot. Okay, this is sort the data frame by salary column in descending order. So here we need to sort the data based on the salary column in descending orders. Okay, so for that we would just need to say something like this. Okay, which is called data frame name df.imp.sorted sorted based on values. I'm trying to sort by values and based on the columns which is called the salary columns. Okay, so first you just give by, and here you give your column name called salary, and then you just need to give your ascending conditions which is called ascending equals what, false. If in case you want to sort in descending, so you need to say ascending false, otherwise ascending would be true. Even if you don't define the ascending, it's still going to sort the data. Okay, now if you see, the data is this time sorted by this salary in this descending, so the highest salary come first. You don't see that because here we have this data frame with this salary which is with this dollar sign. Now this is not a text, so you cannot kind of sort it based on this, because it's trying to consider it as a text. So let's see the second one. I think in the second one we can use this one, so let's see. Okay, in the second one also we have the dollar sign, so unfortunately we will not be able to use this sort by this salary, but let's assume the sort by age. Okay, instead of salary, let's say sort by age, because we will learn how to clean this data, how to delete this dollar sign. Once it is deleted, then we can sort it. Okay, so that was question number 3. Here I have changed it from salary to kind of age. Okay, all right, so you can see the highest age employees are coming first and the lowest are coming at the last, right? Let's see the question number 4 now. So the question number 4 says sort the data frame by first department ascending and then age descending. Okay, so this time we would need to sort department and age 2 columns. Okay, so question number 3, question number 4. So question number 4 dot this, let's go ahead and kind of solve this one. So sort the data frame by department ascending and then age descending. Okay, so we can use on any of the data set. We have 2 data sets which is called employee 1 and employee 2. Both ways it is going to work fine. So let's use the second one, which is called the data frame 2. Okay, you need to say sorted by values or index. So we are sorting by values at the moment. So the values are what? So first column is the department, so you would need to say that here is called as a list. You need to give, because we are giving more than one column, so you need to say here is that by, and as a list you can give the values. What is the values? One is called department and the second one is called, which is called age. Okay, and then you can say comma ascending, and here also you need to give the values as a list. So first one we want ascending, so I would say is called true, and the second conditions I'm going to say is called false. Okay, now let's go ahead and run this query. I do have extra codes here which I need to delete it. Let's go ahead and run it. Now you see the data is first sorted by the department. So if you see, the department accounting is coming first. Okay, then inside the account it is going to sort based on this, which is called the age. Okay, so inside this accounting you can see this employee has the highest age, so that is coming first. Okay, so that is how it is sorting. So accounting in ascending, which is true, and this age is descending, which is true. Okay, so you have seen how to sort by 2 columns. That was question number, I think, 4. Let's see the question number 5 now. Okay, so the question number 5 says that set the id column as the index of the data frame and display the first 5 rows. Okay, so now we want to set the id column as an index, question number 5, and I'm just going to convert it as a markdown m. Okay, so we need to first set the id column as an index, then we need to show the top 5 rows. Okay, so let's see how we can achieve it. So let's go ahead and kind of see the data frame, which is called maybe df. Let's convert it into code using y. So it's a df2. You can use 2 or 1, whatever it is. So I'm going to use maybe 1, and what I need is that the data sets. So first let's kind of see the top 5 rows. So dot head, and I'm going to say top 10. Okay, if you need top 5 row without setting the index, then you can use ilog, because at the moment we have the index as an integer. You can see this is right. Then you need to say ilog 0 to 5. Okay, so 0 to 5 means you will be getting till here, so the first 5 rows. Okay, so let's see. You see I'm getting the first 5 rows, but this is using the ilog because this index is by default itself is an index. Okay, so let's go ahead and set this id column as an index now, then we will see how we can use it. So df.imp.set index, and this time I want to set index based on this id column, and you can see now this id column is index. Now I need the first 5 rows. Okay, So here I would need all these first five rows. So let's go ahead and how we can achieve it. So for that we can just go ahead and say that df imp. So here I would first need to print this df.index. So this time this is set as an index. It's not saved yet because you need to save the data in a new data frame, or you can save it here as well, but I'm going to save in a new data frame called new df imp. Inside it I'm just going to save the data frame. Okay, so let's use the new data frame, and this time we want to sort the data filter. We want to select the first five rows. Okay, so for that I'm going to use lock because this is a text index, and inside the lock I can just define to range. Okay, just to say 6. Okay, so I think 6 doesn't exist. We can just recheck the data set. So we are trying to filter the data from here to here. Okay, the first five rows. So I would need to say starting from 2 until I need basically this 2008. Okay, so here I would just use a slicing to access it. So what I would do is that I'm going to say I need from this 2002 to 2008. So that's going to be 2002 to 2008. Okay, so here you can see I am getting the from first to the fifth records. Now this is a slicing I'm using based on a text. Okay, so this is a text data type, but still you can use the slicing. Okay, so that works fine. Okay, so that is fine. Now here you just don't have to define kind of 5 plus 1 or 4 plus 1 logic. So you just need to define your first one and the end one. Okay, you can see I'm defining this end one, but that is also included. Okay, so let's see next question, which is going to be question number 6. So the question number 6 is select the full name and the job title column for the employee with the ID. Okay, now this is part of index question. Let's see how we can solve it. Okay, mark down question number 6. So it says select full name and the job title column for the employee with ID EO2011. Okay, so first let's see the data frame, and let's go ahead and see the data frame, maybe the table 1. Okay, so table 1 has everything whatever I need. I need full name, and I need the full name and the job title. So the job title is not there in the table 1. Let's see the table 2. So table 2 has a job title columns, which is this one. Okay, so we need these two columns. Okay, now I have already shown you, if you need two columns you just need to use two square brackets, and then you put both the columns using this quotes sign. So first I need, which is called full name, spelling must be correct, comma, what I need the second is called job title. Okay, if I run it, you see I'm getting these two columns. Okay, but there is a problem. Okay, you need these two columns only if in case the ID is EO20011. Okay, so that means we would say here that we need these two, but there would be a filter which this must follow, only then we need. Okay, so the way you understand it, that I can kind of go ahead and kind of say that from this df2 I'm filtering the data. So the data I'm filtering is based on, which is called ID equals this, right? So I can go ahead and say is kind of, I'm selecting ID and I'm saying equals, what I'm looking for is called E02011. Okay, so you see I'm getting only this is I'm kind of looking for, so I need to use two equals here. Oops, I kind of messed up. I cannot use one equals because now all the IDs has been changed. Okay, you can check that df into, and you see all the IDs has been changed. So let's go ahead and import it back again. So make sure that you don't use single equals, otherwise it's going to change the values. Okay, so let's import it back again. So that's going to be somewhere here. Let's check. So into, I'm going to import it again. So this is kind of fixed now. Let's go and kind of see, we only have one true. You see this true, right? So we need these records, but only two columns. Okay, now where you select to like this too is that you can just put this in a square brackets and outside you can just say df2. Okay, but you get all the columns, right? So from this you don't need all the columns. What you need is that only you need few columns. So the columns you need is the full name, and you need which is called this full name, and I think you need the job title. So these are the columns you need, right? So either you save it in a new data frame, then you can filter it, or you can use this and then you can filter it. So the way you filter it, you can put your kind of two square brackets here, and from here what you need you can write down. So let's say I need the same thing, which I'm going to just cut it here. Okay, but I don't need this df2. Okay, so let's go ahead and run it. You can see now I have the first column and the second column. Now the way you understand it, if you don't understand this, I can just explain in a second way. So the second way would be just deleting this two here. Okay, oops. So let me just explain in a second way. Okay, let's say I'm going to delete this portion from now. Okay, see, I'm simply filtering based on one conditions all the columns at the moment. Okay, now just consider that this is a new data frame, and this new data frame has a name called df, and from the df you may be only looking for these two columns. So what do you think? You would be putting two square brackets, and inside that you would just give both the column name separating by comma, right? So that is what I'm doing. So here, from here to here, it is creating at then one data frame, which is this. From this data frame I'm just using two square brackets and two column name. That's how I'm filtering the data, only two columns. Okay, so let me just show you. Let's say I'm going to save it as a df. Now this df has basically all those things, right? Df has all the columns. Now from the df I can just use two square brackets, and I can select what I need is that full name, and I need maybe the job title. So that's going to be job title. Okay, so these are the two columns I need. So the reason why I'm using two square brackets, I have already explained this in the yesterday video. If you are filtering more than one columns from the data frame, you need to use this two square bracket. Otherwise Panda is going to return a series which only has one column. If you need more than one column, so that means you need to use this two square brackets. If you see this is returning one columns, right? So this is a series. Okay, but if you need a data frame which has more than one column, then the condition is that you need to use a two. Okay, so I mean here you will just say that what you need is the second column, that's going to be job title. Okay, you can see two columns. Okay, the same thing we are getting it here. Instead of doing it this way, you are just kind of using this as a data frame, and from here you are just selecting two columns. Okay, no dot is required here. All right, there was question number 6. Let's see the question number 7 now. So question number 7, let's copy paste it here, and let's say question number 7 q7, and let's kind of run it. So it says export the data frame to a new CSV file name called employee underscore db. Okay, so for that I can just use maybe any of the data set, which is maybe this one. Okay, so this data set which is this one, this data set which has only kind of the two columns, which is name and job title, this kind of returns these two columns, right? We can save this into a CSV, which I have already covered yesterday. So again, if you want to see it, I'm going to just mention it. After this, you can just write .call dot, and you can say to CSV. Okay, so whatever the data this code is returning, we can save as a CSV, and I can just name it call imp data 1 and .csv. Okay, so you can see imp data 1 CSV is created, that only has one data frame with kind of index and with the heading. If you don't need the headers, you can say header none, and you can see index none if you don't need. Okay, so that was question number 7. So then we have basic info and head. We have already seen info, head, tails, all those things, right? So I'm just going to skip those questions. So let's move to next data frame, which is called Walmart sales data set, which is called Walmart Excel data set, which is this one. Which is this one, D16 Walmart Excel SX. Okay, so this is the file. So let's see the question number 1. It says filter the data frame to show only the transactions where customer type is member. Okay, let's see if you have any data where the customer type is member. Now for that, first let's go ahead and say write down kind of mark down. So here I'm going to say maybe heading 4, working with Walmart sales data sets. Okay, So this hash 4 times means heading 4. If you just give it 3, heading 3, and if you 2, heading 2, and so on, so on. Okay. So first we need to import the data, right? So this is the data set which is called day16 walmart.xlsx. So let's go ahead and say df, and I'm just going to import inside this in df. Now this is an Excel file, so we are importing this time an Excel file. To import, you just need to say pd.read excel, pd.read csv, pd.read sql, whatever you're saying. So you would say pd.read Excel, because we have already imported panda as a pd, that's the reason I'm using pd. Otherwise I would have to use pandas.read or pandas dot kind of read excel or csv, whatever it is. So file path, so it's in the same folders. This is very, very important, which I have already covered yesterday. If your file is in the same folders, so you don't have to give the path, you can simply use the file name as a string. Okay, so we would be using file name which is called day 16, and that's going to be this one, day 16 walmart xls. Okay, so you don't have to define any parameters here, so we can just go ahead and say run, and we can see the data sets which is called df dot head to see top 5 rows. Okay, so the first 5 rows, you can see we have this invoice id, branch, city, customers, and each and every informations about the data set. We can also use df.info to see some informations about the data set. Okay, so df info parenthesis, you can see we have 12 columns here and 19 entries, that means 19 records, and each of the columns seems like no null at the moment, because 19 columns, 19 entries, and 19 non-null for invoice, branch, city, customer, age, and gender. So all this column, no column has null. You can see the data types. Where you see the object, that means it is a text data types. Where you see int, it's a number data types. Where you see float, it's a decimal number data types. Okay, we have date time, which is kind of a date and data types. Okay, so that's the date column, and object and float. So we have all the different type of data types, you can see it here. So using this info, you get kind of really good informations about the data set. Now let's see the question number 1 that we are talking about. So the question number 1, let's copy the question number 1. So the question number 1 says filter the data set to show only the transactions where customer type is member. Now first let's see if in case we have a customer column. So our data frame name is df right now. So df dot columns, let's see all the columns that we have in this data set. So we have a column called, which is, let's check, customer type. Okay, so this column, based on this column, we're going to filter the data. So we need to see if the customer type is kind of called member. Okay, so customer type is going to be this one. So if the customer type is member, we want to see all those transactions. So for that, I'm going to use this customer type as a filter, right? So we have already learned how to use this as a filter. I would just need to say call customer type equals. Now here I would just write members. It's a text I'm comparing with. I would need to write this one. Now if you just give 1 equals, it's going to assign all the customer type as a member. Very, very important to remember this concept. Single equals and double equals, very, very confusing. But if you say single equals, it's going to set for this df all the customer records, all the rows, this customer type is going to set as a member. Okay, which you do not want. So you see how many true we are getting. So 1 true, 2 true, and all this true. So all that means for all those record out of 19 records are basically having customer type as a member. So if you want to see the whole data sets, so just put this in a square brackets out, just outside just type df. So I'm saying from df I'm looking for this portions wherever this customer type is member, I need that specific rows. Okay, so but I need all the columns because I am not defining any specific column at the moment. Now you see I am getting, which is called all these records, and here all the records has this customer type as a member. You can see it here. Okay, because I have used a simple comparison here. Okay, that is question number 1. Let's go ahead and see the question number 2 now. So the question number 2 says filter the data frame to show transactions where total amount is greater than 500. Okay, so this time we will just go ahead and use this one. Let's go and let's put the question number Q number 2. So let's read the question one more time to understand it better. Okay, it says filter the data frame to show transactions where the total amount is greater than 500. So that is what we are looking for. Now let's have a quick look on this data frame, maybe the head, and we can see which column we are talking here. So we do have only one column which is called total amount. So this total amount we are looking for if the transaction amount is greater than 500. So here you see 548. So this is the transactions what we are looking for. So that could be more and there could be less as well. So the way you will do is that you just use this column to filter, right? So you can just go ahead and say df of what? Total. Okay, and that must be what? Greater than, that must be greater than what? 500. Okay, Now we are using this because we do not have a dollar sign. That's the reason it's an int data type. This is the float data type, so that means we can use this 500 to filter this. Okay, so if I just execute it, I would just have all the records true false. Wherever it's true, that means I would need those records. For that I can just put this inside a square brackets. Outside I would just say from df, from the data frame, I need only these portions wherever this total amount is greater than 500. So I have all the transactions where this total is greater than 500 right now. You can see this, all the transactions where the total amount is greater than 500. This is how we have solved question number 2 of this Walmart sales. Let's see the question number 3 of this now. So it says, the question number 3, it says that, let's kind of put it here, and then question number 3. So it says sort the data frame by the total column in descending order to find the highest transactions. Okay, so that's fine. Let's go ahead and first of all sort the data by this total. So df of the data sets, so df, so let's go ahead and say df dot sort index, and we don't want to sort by index but we want to sort by values. So df of sort values, and we can just give the column name which is called by, it's called total. Okay, so I think T is a capital, so let me just check. So total, T is a small letter, so total. Now what do you want, ascending or descending? We will check that. Okay, so descending order, so that means I would need to say ascending equals kind of false, right? That's how I would be getting the data sorted. Now if in case you want to sort the data in actual data frame, then you would just need to call something called in place equals true. Now I would show you without sorting it. Okay, so let's say I have sorted the data here. So you can see here the data is sorted based on the total amount, highest total amount coming first. So this sales record has the highest amount, which is $772, $749, $634, $627, $590, so on so on, right? So you can see it is sorted based on the ascending to descending to ascending, right? But if you see, if I am printing the data set here, okay, if I'm just going to print the data set here, which is called df, and you see that data is again not sorted. Okay, 500, then 80, then 340, right? So what is happening, you are sorting the data, but this is not sorting the data in your main data frame. You are just getting the sorting as a result. So either you save it in a new data frame, but if you want to, you know, kind of implement this in the actual data frame, which is called df, then you just need to use something called in place equals true. So this is going to make the actual change in your main data frame, which is called df. Now we will see. This time what it has done is that it has sorted the data in actual data frame based on this total amount. You can see here in this actual data frame it is now sorted. Earlier it was not sorted. So wherever you want to make any changes in the actual data frame, which is not advised, but you just need to use in place equals true. Otherwise you can just save that in a new data frame, but that's how you would end up with creating multiple data frames. Okay, so whatever you want, you can just go ahead and do it. So let's make it short, and you can see here the data is now sorted. Okay, I'm getting just 5 rows. So now the next question is again on the same sorting concept, which is called sort the data frame by first branch ascending and then unit price descending. So we need two sorting again here. So we will be using the same logic what we have used earlier. So I would just go ahead and say here, I think this is going to be my question number 4. So let's add Q4 and let's put it here. So we need first sort by branch and then unit price. Okay, so for that I would just go ahead and say df dot sorting, sort based on values. I'm not sorting based on index again. So inside this parenthesis I would need to say by, which is not mandatory. You can just put your kind of column name directly as well. As I'm sorting more than one column, I need to give as a list. Okay, you can see it here, sequence, or you give it as a list like this. Okay, so the first column I want to sort it is basically by, let's see, branch and then and the unit price. Okay, so it's going to be branch. I need to check the spelling for branch. Yeah, it's a small letter, so branch. Next what I want is sort by, which is called the unit price. Okay, unit price, which is going to be this column. So now I would need ascending for this, which is called branch. So you can see for this branch I need ascending, so I can just give it as a true, and then I need kind of this unit price as a descending, so I would just give it as a false. Okay, So here you see I have two columns. I'm sorting by two columns. I need to give two parameters here, or by default it's going to be in ascendings. Okay, so that's fine. Let's see the results. And this time you see the data is sorted by this branch. All the A branch is coming first, then B branch. Okay, now inside A, the highest unit price product will come first. So it's 86, 54, 46, 36, 25, 15, right? So you can see it here. Again, inside B you would see the highest 93, 85, 68, and so on and so on. Okay, so this is how the sorting is working. We have seen how to sort by more than one columns and how to give multiple parameters here. Now let's see the question number 5. So the question number 5 is again on the indexing. So it says set the invoice ID column as an index of the data frame and display the first 5 rows. So what we have done earlier, it's the same problem. So we will again go ahead and kind of write it here. So this is our question number 5. So Q5, let's comment it out. So we need the first column to be set as an index. So let's see all the columns again. So here I need to set this invoice ID as an index. Now you need to make sure you remember this. When you set a column as an index, that column is gone from the data frame, because now you're using that column as an index. So index means based on that name, your data is going to be stored in the data frame, like in the Python memory. So whenever you want to call that specific data frame, you would be using that index. Okay, but that's not going to call as a column, right? Column and the index, there's a difference between column and index. Okay, so to set it, you can say df and you can say dot set index, and what is the column name? It's called id, invoice id. Invoice id is the column name. And if I want to implement in the actual data frame, I would just need to say in place equals to, which I do not want, so it's a df new. Okay, so in this df new I have assigned this, which is called the data frame. And now you see this invoice ID is out of this column and it is used as an index. Okay, so I need now first 5 rows. So for that I would just go ahead and say that what I need is the log dot log, because it is a non-integer data types, though it looks like a number but it's not a number. You can see there's a dash, so the number will not have a dash even if you want to check the info. So you can say info, check the data type, it should be showing as an object. So again, you cannot see it because for the index you don't see it, right? But again, this was earlier. If you go back and you would be able to see that it was kind of object type data frame. Okay, so let's go ahead and say here is log, because we want to kind of filter the data based on the text based index. So and I would just need to say log, and here I need to define my range. Okay, so the way I would define my range is going to be, let's see the data frame again. So here I would just go ahead and say dot log, and I would just give my range, which is starting from the first, this one, slice of 1 2 3 4 5. So this one. Okay, so you can see that I have this slice which is starting from this 6 5 to this 0 5. Okay, so this is how I am getting the results, which is question number 5. Let's see now the question number 6. It says select the city and the product line columns for the transactions where the payment method is e-wallet. Okay, now this is little interesting problems which we have already solved. So let's go ahead and first of all see what do you need to find out. Okay, so let me just save it here and I'm just going to say question number 6. So it says select the city and the product line columns for the transactions where the payment is e-wallet. See, we need those columns, okay, where this the payment method is a e-wallet, and we only need what, which is called product line. So this is the product line columns, and we need the second column, which is called city. So we need product line and this city columns. But if the payment type is e-wallet, we don't need this column in the results. Okay, so that's what it's interesting. So let's first say that we want to only see all the data set where this payment method is e-wallet. So how you're going to do it? So you would say that, which is called payment method equals, which comparing with the text, which is called e-wallet. Okay, let's see the data sets. So you see we have one true, all this true, we will be getting the results. I would just need to put this inside a square brackets outside. I would say from the data frame, I would need this portion wherever this payment method is e-wallet. Okay, so the way you understand this is that, see here I'm saying df of payment, so that means this is a column where I'm putting this filter. So people get confused here is that they don't put outside to get the data set, because see this is just you're building a logic to select the data set, right? But from where you're getting the results, so this is at the end, it's kind of one column you're saying wallet e-wallet, but you need the results, right? So for that you need to use this outside square brackets, that from the data frame I am looking for this filtered data. Okay, so that is how you get the data sets where e-wallet is there. Okay, now from this data set, what do you need? You need only two columns, so you just need to use two square brackets, which we have talked about earlier, and you just write the column name that you are looking for. One is city and one is you are looking for, which is called the product line. Okay, both are text columns, so I need to inside in the single quotes. Okay, so this is one way you write it down, and the second way, if in case you don't want to write in this way, you can just save this in another df called new, or maybe df, let's say df2, and from the df2 you can say df2 of what I'm looking for is this. Okay, you get the same results. So here you're just saving the results in another new data frame, and then you are filtering only two columns. Okay, you are only selecting two columns basically. Okay, so both way we can do it, whatever you want, you are comfortable, you can use both the approach. Okay, that is fine. Let's go ahead and now see something else. Okay, so next we're looking for, which is called export the data frame to a new CSV as an invoice data set. Now we can do that. Okay, now we just need to export this data frame into a CSV. See, we are working with the Excel file, but we need to export it into a CSV name called invoice data. Yes, we can go ahead and do that. Okay, so in fact what I can do is that from the data frame, let's filter out something, and let's say I am only going to export the data frame only few of the columns, not all the columns. Okay, so for that I would just use two equals. So I would just select the column I'm looking for, let's say maybe invoice ID. Let's first write it this way, which is called, let's say I'm going to say invoice ID, or I can just put all the columns. Okay, so let's get all the columns, which is called df dot columns, and you can just write it. Oops, you don't need this parenthesis, I just keep on forgetting this. So all these columns are here. Let's say I need kind of this invoice ID, what I am looking for, and I need maybe this branch and city, and I may need this call, just call the total. Okay, and the date as well, and maybe the payment as well. I'm not interested with the rating. So all the columns are separated by comma, you can see it here, and I am getting it everything from this data frame. So if I just execute it, I have a short table with all these 5 columns. So this one I can save it, so dot, and I would say 2, I'm exporting as a CSV. Okay, what is the CSV name? So name is called invoice data.csv, and again separator is not mandatory, but you can just give a separator so that you can import it in SQL as well. So that's fine, and we can execute it. You see that invoice and data is created using this separator as a comma. Okay, so here you see the data is created, but we have this something called index, and we have this headers. We do need the header, we don't need the index. So what I can do for that, we can just say index equals false. Okay, so we can give one more argument here, we can say index none. Okay, now the data is exported again, and this time you will see the index would be gone. You can see there is no index at the moment, we just have the invoice ID, so the clean data. And now you can work this data in Excel as well, and you can work wherever you want. Okay, all right, so that was the question number 7. Let's see the question number 8. It says export the data frame to Excel file name invoice.xls. Now I'm just going to quickly show you how you can export it as an Excel, but I would also copy this question number 9. Okay, so let's go ahead and say that this time you want to export it as an Excel. For that I would just first paste my question number 9 here, Q9. Okay, so this time we want to export as an Excel. So for that you can simply go ahead and just copy paste everything here, and instead of 2 CSV you can say 2 EXEL. Okay, so 2 EXEL Excel. Here you don't need the separators, so you can just ignore it. We do say do want to say that index equals none, and we can ignore the header as well if you don't need the headers. So we can go ahead and say header none if you don't need it. Okay, oops, we would just see that where is the mistake we have done. Let's check. It says no engine file name type. Okay, so you can see we are getting some error. So the reason we are getting this error, we will see it. Okay, so here we are saying we are exporting back to Excel. We are exporting this data as a Excel, but inside the data extension I'm giving is a CSV, which is not allowed. So here you need to say XLXX. Okay, so this is the extension you can give, or you can just use XLS. So let's execute it. You see now invoice data is created. We can just check in finders. We'll just go ahead and say open in finders. This is the data sets, and you can see the data is now clearly exported, but you don't see the header because we have removed the headers. Okay, that's fine. The reason I have done it intentionally, I'm going to show you why. So let's go back and let's say next question, which is called df info. Again, we have seen that, but we will see it again. Now let's say we have a data called invoice and data that doesn't have a headers, and we want to import this data and we want to give our header. Okay, so we can do that. For that, I'm just going to add a new cells, and I'm going to call importing Excel file without header. Okay, so this is fine, and let's go ahead and say that we are importing which is called invoice data. So I would say df and id, that means invoice and data. Okay, I would just go ahead and say df and id. Yeah, that's invoice data. So here I would say pd dot read Excel file this time, and what is the file name? It's in the same path, which is called invoice dot data xlsx. Okay, now if I just want to show you this data frame, so df id, and I can just go ahead and say, hey, show you the first 5 rows or maybe the bottom 5 rows. You can see the data is imported. So it's now considering the first row as a headers, and that is how you are getting the data. Okay, so we can either say header is none here, otherwise you are losing one record. So you can see this is one record of your data. Okay, if you see, this is the data which is called order ID 5665. This is one of the data which you are losing once you're exporting, once you're importing, and so I think this is the one, right? So which is called 5665. This is the records it is considering as a headers while you are importing Excel file. Now this is very important concept. That's the reason I'm basically showing this example. So either you can say that while importing, you can say header and you can say none. That means my data doesn't have a headers. That's where the first record is ignored. Now you can see now the first record is considered as a row. If you want to see the total row this time, we can use the info, and we can see the total row. This time we have the total row which is called 19 entries and 6 columns. But if I just remove this header, and you would see it is showing 18 entries and again 6 columns. That means the first entry it was considering as a headers. Okay, so the way you fix it, you say header is none. That's one thing. The second you want is that what you want while you are importing, you want to give some column name. Okay, so dot head or maybe dot tail. So what you want is that you see by default the column names are given as 0 1 2 3 4 5. Okay, that is by Pandas. So we can give something called name, and inside this names you can give this different column name. So you just need to use that as a list, and you can give all the columns names. You need to ensure that you are giving all the 5 columns names. So 0 1 2 3 4 5. Okay, for all this column name. So I can go ahead and say first one I would just want to call it ID. The second one I would want to call it as kind of the branch. The third columns I want to call it maybe something called country. It's a text, so I would need to put inside the quotes. Then I would need maybe which is called total. So you need to make sure that column is the equal same number of columns. Okay, then I would need something called date, and I would need something called which is called the first last one, this p type. Okay, so this is the columns I am giving while importing this data. Now you can give it outside, and you can just give as a variable name here. You can create this list outside, that's also works fine, but I can just give it here as well. This time you see I have, while importing the data set, I am giving some columns, and these columns are nicely kind of inserted of all of these data sets. All right, that's it for this video, guys. Thank you so much for watching the video till here, and I hope you have learned something new today. If you're new to this channel, do subscribe to my YouTube channel and do make sure to go through all this GitHub repository. Try to solve each of these problem multiple times so that you can master this concept. Now pandas is very important libraries of Python. You can get you can ask different questions, but if your concept basic fundamentals are not clear, you would struggle to remember all those concepts. Now only the way you remember all this concept is that you need to solve as many as problems you can solve using the pandas. That's the reason I'm kind of extending these sessions to cover all this concept and to show you how you can think and solve these problems. Okay, have a good one. See you tomorrow. Take care. Bye bye.